you've given some great examples of people coming to live together and us making great strides toward that. But how then practically, given that you've already said that this is the much more difficult outcome to achieve than the annihilationist one, how practically do you see this happening?
It's not practical. And that's the point, right? I mean, human change, human transformation is just not practical. These are leaps into the dark. When, for instance, the Soviet Revolution took place, it was a leap into the dark. Ordinary people, peasants, workers, people who had not had 5, 8, 10, 15 generations of a certain kind of, of learning and a certain kind of bourgeois culture were now in charge. It was a leap into the dark, to have, the son of a domestic worker as the minister of high office. It was a leap in the dark. Look, the United States, when there was an attempt over the course of the 20th century to eradicate the immense and ugly burden of racial hierarchies, racism, Jim Crow and so on, it's a leap into the dark. It was a struggle. People fought hard and died in the United States to establish the equality of peoples. It wasn't easy. It was ugly. And people have died even till now trying to establish equality. Now, they were not fighting politically. They were just walking down the street, were shot by somebody, police officer or a vigilante or whatever. But every one of those incidents brings people onto the street and schools us in the limitations of our advances and so on. So there is no ease of this. There is nothing practical. It is extraordinary how humans make these changes. That's why I like that idea of the zigs and the zags. We make an advance, then we lose a little, and then we keep going. The human spirit is pretty eternal, and our examples keep going. I mean, after Medgar Evers was killed, why didn't black families in the United States say no more children can go and protest or even go outside? You're not going to go and you can't have a white friend. No, millions of young people went out to continue the protest. Millions of young people went and socialized with their white friends. The families didn't say the example of Medgar Evers is retreat. They said the example of Medgar Evers, who was brutally killed, is to go forward. The assassination of King, it wasn't to produce a retreat. It certainly did break down the movements a little, but it also inspired people to keep going. So, yeah, there is nothing practical in this. There is merely this insanity that we have. You understand philosophy. You understand what it means. If I say there's an imperative, the human spirit has certain imperatives. One of them is a fight for liberty of some kind or freedom. These are imperatives. Human beings, like other species, do not take being caged in lightly. Even when you go to the zoo, those animals haven't fully surrendered. They're always looking for a way out, and humans are like that. It may take us a long time to understand how to break out of the zoo, but we break out. It from the very beginning of the enslavement of humans in the transatlantic slave trade, people were fighting for freedom. It took a long time to get good strategies down and to change, opinions of other peoples and so on. But people kept fighting, including those people from West Africa who, when they were chained, were walking off the slave ship in the Carolinas, turned around as if in one, and the whole line of people walked back into the ocean and drowned themselves. That was an immense form of resistance, an immense statement saying, I would rather walk back to Africa under the ocean than submit to the horrors of your plantations. But the people who did that, they wouldn't have known that hundreds of years later, there would be a monument, to people like them. And there would be some victories, which are still not complete, but are a long way away from people in chains being made to work for free on plantations, So these are leaps into the dark. So when one says, oh, how can you even imagine Palestinians and Israelis living together? I would say, how could they have imagined 400 years ago that people of African and European descent would live side by side in some god-awful suburb in Central California? And they do.